Hello and welcome to It's a Code U, mental health support for those working in healthcare. This is a podcast created for healthcare employees to explore not only issues relating to mental and emotional health, but also unique challenges that those working in healthcare are faced with. Your hosts are Adina Tucker, a licensed clinical social worker with Dartmouth Health, and Jennifer Hinsey, an MSW also with Dartmouth Health. Often, if we are feeling unhappy or unsure in a relationship, it can be because our needs aren't being met. But what if you don't know what your needs are? Something that's paramount to understanding what you as an individual needs is your relationship with yourself. In today's episode, we will help you understand how to cultivate your relationship with yourself, how to self reflect, and not only identify your needs, but effectively communicate them to others.
Now, let's start by taking a look at what we think about in holistic care, which can be found in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow proposed a psychological theory in 1943. And the premise of this theory is that as humans, we have 5 levels of needs that need to be met in a certain order. These needs can be visualized in a pyramid shape. And in fact, if you were to look up Maslow's hierarchy of needs in Google or something, you would definitely see this imagery in the shape of a pyramid. So, starting at the bottom of this pyramid, you have the physiological needs. And this is going to be things like water, shelter, food, sleep, clothing. The next level up, once your physiological needs are met, would be our need for safety. So, things like security, health, resources, employment, property. Above our safety need is the need for love and belonging. So that's things like family, friendship, and intimacy. Beyond love and belonging, we also have the need for esteem. So self esteem, respect, status. And at the top of the pyramid is what's called self actualization. Maslow described this as our need to realize our full potential, including our creativity and personal growth.
So, one way to start identifying what you need is to divide self care into parts. And one example of this would be to look at mental or emotional, physical, spiritual care, and then self fulfillment. So, let's start by looking at some examples of what each facet of self care would look like. So, if we start with our mental and emotional needs, so your mental health and your emotional health can mean taking time to do things that you value, making things that you enjoy a priority, and ensuring that you take time for them. This can be hard because what if you have someone in your life that thinks a particular activity or hobby you enjoy is a waste of time? Those are moments when we often abandon what we need due to the input of others. And that can be because of the need for affection, need for validation, need for security and emotional stability, or a sense of safety in relationships, a need for empathy or the feeling of being understood and cared for, and the need for respect. And that involves the need to be treated with dignity, consideration, and appreciation by others in our lives.
Next, when we consider physical, this can include some basic daily activities like putting on clean clothing, taking care of our hygiene, brushing our teeth. But it also includes things like eating a balanced diet or getting some regular exercise and moving our bodies. Think of things that make you feel your physical best. So, things like eating nutritious foods, and of course, drinking enough water, staying hydrated. Exercise, too. Exercise is good for our bodies, but it's also good for our mental health. And it doesn't have to be super time consuming or strenuous. So you could try taking a 30-minute walk every day. If that even seems a bit too daunting, maybe take 3 10-minute walks and break it up throughout the course of your day. Things like getting some good quality sleep, because getting enough sleep helps our body repair and rejuvenate to face the next day. A lack of sleep can definitely affect our mental and physical health. And personal care. Having good personal hygiene and dental care helps to keep our bodies protected from illness and infection.
Now let's talk about spiritual self care. So, spiritual self care doesn't necessarily mean religion, it can really mean having a focus on your inner self. And this can expand your feeling of personal development and provide you with a feeling of peace. Things that can help with your spiritual self care could mean meditation or engaging in worship practices if you are connected with a particular religious practice. Finally, our last facet of self care would be the idea of self fulfillment or self actualization. And self actualization is the inner drive to become the most authentic, fulfilled version of yourself. Recognizing this need is important because it fuels purpose, creativity, and personal growth, which are key elements of mental and emotional well being. When they're ignored, people may feel stuck, restless, or unfulfilled, even if other needs are met. So, to nurture self actualization, explore your passions, align your life with your values, pursue meaningful goals, and embrace opportunities for self expression and growth.
Now let's talk about how do we honor and meet our different needs. Well, when we're talking our emotional needs, that can look like a few different things. And again, and this is not limited to what we are talking about here. You might have other ideas in mind on how you might meet any one of your emotional needs or physical needs, spiritual. But for our emotional needs, consider practicing self care. So that could look like seeking out and participating in things that make you feel good. This might include your hobbies, going for some exercise, or even things like practicing meditation. Establishing boundaries is another great way to meet our emotional needs. And when we say establishing boundaries, we mean setting limits with others that are healthy for you. So this can include something as simple as saying no to a request or invitation and honoring your own need for downtime, or the fact that maybe your social battery is at zero and you need some quiet time to yourself. You could also participate in therapy. Therapy is a great way to help you discover what feels out of balance and get back to a more balanced space where you can feel your best. And reaching out to people who care and support you.
So, now let's talk about our physical needs. How do we honor those? Well, you can make sure that you're getting a balanced diet. So, getting a healthy, balanced diet with the things that you enjoy from each category of foods can really improve your health. You could keep a food journal to make sure you're getting foods from each category, but ensure you're also eating foods that give you pleasure. Get regular movement. If you aren't into sports and find most exercise not enjoyable, try to do something that gets you moving for at least 30 minutes a day. YouTube has lots of free exercise videos. Even putting on music and dancing your heart out for 30 minutes a day will bring some physical and mental health benefits. And don't forget that many daily activities include movement like walking your dog, gardening, and cleaning. And you can prioritize your sleep. So, trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. And when you can stick to a sleep schedule, that can help. This can be difficult if you're working night shift or other hours that mean your sleep is different from day to day. And lastly, maintain your hygiene. Shower daily, brush your teeth, and do other self care things that work towards your well being. Lastly, let's talk about how you can honor your spiritual needs. So, spiritual needs are very individual. For some folks, mindfulness and meditation fulfill their spiritual needs. For others, religious practices or beliefs are an important part of their spiritual life. Still, other folks feel a spiritual connection to nature. Whatever your spiritual needs are, be sure you are making space for them. You could meditate, practice mindfulness, and if you practice certain religious practices, becoming more involved in spending time and energy focusing on those can help honor those needs.
Now let's talk about meeting the need for self actualization, or what we might also call self fulfillment. You might pursue some creative outlets. So, taking up painting or writing, playing music, really any sort of artistic practice that helps you express your inner world and your feelings. You could set some meaningful goals and start working towards them. And that really could be anything. Maybe that looks like training for a marathon or starting a project you're very passionate about, going back to school to study something that excites you. Aligning your work with your values is one. So this doesn't have to be your regular 9 to 5 either if you're passionate about the environment, for example. Maybe that means volunteering for conservation efforts or even taking something that you regularly volunteer for and is important to you and transitioning that into a more regular career path. Engaging in self reflection is a great one. You could do that by keeping a journal, going to therapy, or practicing meditation to deepen your self awareness and understand what your purpose might be. Helping others in a way that feels meaningful is also a good one. So that might look like mentoring a younger colleague at work, getting more involved in a community group, taking a leadership role in that, or using your strengths to support a cause that you care about. Taking healthy risks is one. You might travel somewhere new, you might share your ideas publicly, or just trying something different outside of your comfort zone, because that can help you grow. And living authentically. And what we mean by that is being willing to speak your truth, set boundaries, and make life choices that reflect who you really are, that you feel truly aligned with, not performing or being or doing what you think others expect you to be.
Well, what if you recognize that you don't feel like your needs are getting met, but you aren't really sure of what it is that you need? Well, you can use some self reflection. So, using some time to self reflect can help you to start to understand what your needs are. Spend some time thinking about what matters to you. What are the things that you truly value, and what makes you feel connected to those things? What types of things, activities, or ways to spend your time make you feel secure and happy? And then be aware of your feelings. Pay close attention to how you're feeling. Pay attention to emotions that arise and use those as clues to any needs that you have that are unmet. Maybe you've reflected and you have an idea of what it is you need, but now you need to communicate it. If you're communicating it with someone close to you, pick the right time and place. Choose a time where you can both focus on the conversation and let the focus be on you. Use I statements such as, I really value knowing myself, and sometimes I really need to be alone to recharge. I need to have a night a week to myself. Be clear and try to be specific. The clearer you are by avoiding being vague, the more likely the other person is going to be able to support you and also honor your needs. Sometimes we can feel guilty stating a need, and that might lead us to be vague or leave things up to interpretation. But that can also mean that the other person isn't sure what we mean. Be open and honest about how you're feeling and what you need. Be clear that your needs are about you and it's important for you to take care of yourself. And be open to working together, especially if with a partner, to get creative about your needs. When you're juggling a relationship, work, and maybe even children, sometimes it can be really difficult to take what you need. Let your partner be your ally in figuring out how to make space and honor your needs. And it might spark a conversation about needs that they need help figuring out as well. So, all this talk in this episode about identifying your needs and communicating them, I think it makes me think about becoming a parent, and that's also something that is about to happen to you. But I think, especially, I don't, maybe all parents go through this, but I was talking to a client about it and feeling guilty about wanting to not have anyone talk to her or touch her for 30 minutes a day, or to be able to go take a shower and have time to do that. And I think that that is one of the things that's hard about communicating your needs, especially when you're taking on a role, is because, and this goes back to an episode we had on self comparison, which you can check out, but we compare ourselves to other people, and if people post all these things on social media, or maybe we talk to other parents and they're not necessarily completely honest about what their experience is. And so you think, oh, well, I should be able to do everything and need nothing. And that's just not how it works. It's like that whole phrase about you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's so true. You have to take care of yourself to be able to take care of others.
Yes, that is such a great point. And it also makes me think about, right, the messaging that comes with, right, taking on and being in certain roles. So maybe that is, yeah, being a new parent and you've assumed such a huge role in being responsible for caretaking this new life. And then I also think about folks in healthcare, right? Massive caretaking role. And what tends to happen to how we identify with ourselves when we're in those roles. And a lot of it, too, culturally becomes celebrated or expected that because you're in this caretaking role, well, that means that maybe you don't even have needs, they don't exist, or they shouldn't be prioritized, right? But it is, again, so important, especially if you're living a role that demands so much of you and taking care of others, whether that's parenthood, whether that's being a healthcare professional. It's just such greater emphasis on reminding yourself that your needs matter too and finding the language to express that, building the awareness too, like becoming aware of, wow, what the heck do I need in this moment? Right. And I think, just thinking personally, there have been times when I thought that circumstances were so dire or something was way worse than perhaps it actually was. But it turns out I just need a few minutes away and I need to like eat something because I hadn't eaten for like half a day, or hadn't drank some dang water. Like even just the basic things. So yeah, great, great reminder. Great reminder.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about healthcare workers because it's something that's come up with some of my clients and I had personally resonated with me because of my time working like in inpatient hospitals, but I think and sometimes what's interesting is that I think there is sometimes this idea for people who work in healthcare with their loved ones that like, oh, you love taking care of people, you love nurturing. And so if I'm constantly coming to you with things or when you get home, like that, you love that. So I'm actually doing something good for you by letting you do all these things. But even that sometimes, because hospitals are very fast paced and a lot of times you have people asking you questions. So you're doing like three tasks while also being like handling questions being fired at you. So sometimes there for me, there was this feeling of I don't want to get out of my car when I get home because there's a whole house full of people that are going to be asking me what's for dinner, when are we eating? I don't like that. Can you make something else? Or a million other questions. Where's this thing? I can't find it. And I need to not have anyone talk to me for about 15, 20 minutes so that I can just transition from this to this. And I found that that's something I've had several clients say that their families take that personally or they don't understand it. And that can be a hard thing because then there's that guilt of, well, I'm not a great mom if I need a break before I transition into role from hospital social worker or nurse or whatever it is. So I think again, like you were saying, being super aware of it and like figuring out exactly how to articulate like this specifically is what I need and this is why I need it because of me and because of like I'm feeling overwhelmed or whatever it is. Because I think the other thing is that when you're able to communicate what you're feeling and connect that to the need, I feel like that can, because we're all human. So sometimes if we hear, I want to be by myself, it is sometimes you think, oh, you don't, it's because of me. You want to be by yourself because you don't want to be around me. But if you can articulate, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling whatever, it, allows the other person to have more empathy for you. And, it's just, yeah.
It's an excellent point and great opportunity in the process, right, of identifying what those things you need are, how they're affecting how you feel, and verbalizing them. Actually a great opportunity to model good, healthy behavior, self advocacy, whether that's for your kids, adults around you, coworkers. We all, I think every single one of us, right, could use a little assistance practice in communicating our needs well and identifying what those things are, how they impact us, and just being authentic and sharing with others, right? What's going on and what it is that we actually require to help us cope and feel better.
So, to just wrap things up, just remember that it can be difficult at times to determine what needs are unmet. And sometimes it feels easier to ignore those feelings and push them away rather than paying attention to what our body is telling us. It's so important for your mental health and well being to be aware of what your needs are and to be able to communicate what they are to those who love you. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please reach out to us at dhbhs.media@hitchcock.org. And we appreciate you listening.